little tiny, so that's what he's doing.
Right.
Train, smile. I said to him a million times already.
What's that?
What about film?
The production is full.
You know when it starts in December?
It'll start in January.
Now the radio station, do we have a flyer for that?
It's such a mom. You probably see all the stains and be like,
Yeah. I'm not fine, but I pick up that stuff.
you're like, man. The eye of the sea. Check out PhillyCAM if you don't know about it.
I do. I actually did.
Like on Sunday. Yeah, that area around.
What we're talking about.
Yeah, make sure it's in the area. He has like kind of like a city. So her, yeah, she works with me. It's so cool.
Is this all right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Just calm down.
Did you guys want to hang on to the tape, or should I grab it back now?
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Elbow grease it all.
That's the beauty of my school right there. Right there. That's the beauty.
Hello, hello. Testing, tasting. Tasting, 1, 2, 3. Hi, everybody. Hi, Sharon. Hello. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes, but I really want to encourage people to go over and get some of the great food that we have here this morning to keep you satisfied through till lunch. I think it's starting to move away, so grab it as it rolls. Grab the roll. Then maybe out. You may be able to just get it out in the hallway for a little while. Okay, so it'll be out there, but we want. It would be a sin. It would be a shanda not to eat some of this food. So. I'll have to grab myself a phone on the way. How are you?
here last year, and we've done a bunch of things. Very patiently. We love that. I can basically take everybody that I know, one of them is back. The other one is Kevin.
Can I grab my paper here? Sure. I should have done this. Your last name would be pronounced Kolshreshta?
Close, yes.
Cool.
Claire Healy. Nice to meet you.
Cool.
Do you want me to spell it out phonetically?
Yeah. Cool. It's Kolshreshta.
Yeah. Instead of saying just take out the H. So
Kolshreshta. Gotcha. Thank you so much. I'm really glad you agreed to this out. I'm hoping people are registering a little late because we had 140 registered and we're not there yet by any means, but you could just take a seat up. I mean, eventually you're going to come out here, but that's probably at 10:30. So yeah, if you just...
The other panelists are all in the front row here.
That makes that easy, yeah.
Oh, good.
It's not because we like food, it's purely
No, I'm doing fine. Yeah, my partner.
Sometimes it's volunteers, but you know, if a volunteer project and they do something that's help overall, you know, consider it and run that list or plus it. Those are the sort of reasons. Someone who initiates it. Extra. If this organization
Change is always
You know better than anybody stats about how well kids are following preschool enthusiasm around. A lot of people said that in the
Have some pastry. All right, we're going to start in just a moment. So, people, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, we're going to, much better, much louder. We're going to start in just a moment. As soon as you finish the conversation you're having now, find somebody friendly to sit next to, which is pretty much anybody here. And as soon as Tan nods his head, I'll start off. All right. So. Okay, well, it's really fantastic to have everybody here. I'd like to welcome you to the 4th Annual Technology Learning Collaborative Conference. I'm really proud to have helped, along with Tan, Vu, and Lorelai, the last name? and Lorelei from Fight to have founded TLC. No, Shingle Decker was easy. I could remember that. So anyway, welcome to the conference. I'm going to do, just briefly, one of the things that's really fun about this is that every year we get to reimagine the conference and think about what we should do. The first year in 2013 was based around technology and shared prosperity. And we considered how member organizations could use their resources to support city efforts to combat poverty. There were about 90 attendees. In 2014, the conference was Bring IT on Home, and we focused on how technology intersects with daily life, including housing, government affairs, health, financial literacy, and employment. There were about 110 attendees. Last year's conference, Technology and Learning, the Evolution, will be televised, focused on how technology is utilized in formal and informal education. There were 3 amazing featured panelists who each offered a workshop in the afternoon. And there were about 130 attendees. This year, we have 140 attendees signed up, so hopefully some more will trickle in during the course of the day. It's cool that all the different conferences had forms and structures, different themes and structures. We want this event to be a model, and we want to follow the best practices to get that model. After each year's conference, we discuss and analyze them and keep elements that worked and change or discard things that didn't. So you'll have noticed this year a number of the vendors are downstairs in room 108, and we really want to encourage you to stop by during the lunch break to go through them. They're things that are useful to all of us in our sort of dedication to doing what we can to promote digital inclusion across the city and the country. This year's conference, partly inspired by the fact that this is a historic presidential election year, is titled Click, Involve, Engage, Technology and Civic Engagement. Civic engagement ranges from individual volunteerism to organizational participation to electoral involvement. It encourages individuals to develop personal responsibility for working to address social problems. It includes efforts to work within its community to solve problems and to interact with government. The ubiquity of computers and new technologies, including augmented technologies, so we've got to figure out how to use Pokemon Go for civic engagement. Real-time digital video, free and inexpensive apps, and access to big data is adding a new dimension to civic engagement. TLC member organizations and individuals provide access to these and other technologies thousands of times per year to visitors young and old. This conference is designed to offer you valuable insights, knowledge, discussions, and networking opportunities so our computing center staff understand and utilize best practices to promote civic engagement, which will in turn strengthen our whole community. Quick question. How many of you helped someone register to vote in this presidential election cycle? Okay, that's great. I know that in our public access computer centers in Parks and Rec, most of them have helped at least several people sign up to vote. And if you can think about how incredibly important Philadelphia is in this election, it may be the first time in many years that it's actually our vote is likely to affect the national outcome. So it's super important. I'm really looking forward to this year's panelists. It's 4 panelists and 6 workshop sessions. After the panel ends at 11:45, there'll be 3 workshops before lunch and then 3 different workshops afterward. And please, during lunch, go down and look at the vendors and spend a little time getting to know what they have. I want to express our deep appreciation to Comcast and Bob Smith in particular for their ongoing support of TLC's quarterly meetings and this annual conference, as well as for their contribution of a netbook to 2 netbooks to the post-conference raffle. I want to thank Edmentum for their contribution of a gift certificate and some other goodies, Essential Education for a contribution of a set of workbooks and a free trial of their GED high-set curriculum. Philadelphia Fight donated conference swag, including the T-shirts for the staff, pens, flashlights, flash drives, and cool mini bags that you'll find downstairs that you probably have. PEC donated the larger bags as well as a tablet and 7 tablet notebook carrying cases. So, and I think there may be some other things. So we really recommend the vendors have tickets to the raffles, so go see the vendors to get your ticket, and then stay around till the end of the conference for your chance to win. We have many fantastic orgs tabling here, and I really encourage you to stop at their tables. The raffle will be held at 2:45. You do need to be present to win. We want to thank this morning's panelists, Kelly Klein, Digital Director of Communications at the National Democratic Convention that was held here in Philly, Jessa Lingle, Assistant Professor of Communication at the University of Pennsylvania, Gretchen Klausing, Executive Director at PhillyCAM, and Megan Kulreshta, founder of Food Connect. Eliza Pollack, Program Manager from the city's Office of Innovation and Technology, will facilitate. Today's workshop presenters are listed in the program and include long-respected Philly organizations like the Committee of 70, the United Way, and Philadelphia Works, as well as newer players like TurboVote, Jefferson Telemedicine, the city's 311 line, and KeySpots. All of them and the panelists and many of the organizations that have tables here and downstairs in 108 support real, existing, functioning civic engagement projects that you can participate in today from your centers and from your smartphones. But we are just at the dawn of this era. You are in the right place at the right time to learn about civic engagement resources today and use them tomorrow. Many of you are also perfectly positioned as knowledgeable members of your community to offer a unique perspective on how to combine tech with civic engagement to help Philly build a better future. You'll hear from Mega, among others, how she saw a need, found a solution, made it happen. No magic, no big bucks, just necessity is the mother of invention. Take a lot of business cards and share yours. Please use today to learn about what's available, to network with the incredible players here, to help share your ideas and find out more about their projects, and to consider what your organization can do to promote greater engagement from Philly's citizens in co-creating our future. We also would like to thank our special guest speakers this morning, Siobhan Reardon from the Free Library and Tim Wisniewski from the city's Office of Data. He'll tell you exactly where he's from, because it seems to change a little bit every few months, but the title. Anyway, and lastly, I really want to encourage those of you that have attended these conferences and perhaps have attended our quarterly meetings to consider joining the TLC board. We would really love to have your input. Thanks a lot, and next will be Tan Vu.
Hello, welcome. I'm super excited, and I'm going to keep mine really, really short because we are running a little bit behind. So super excited, phenomenal panelists, presenters, and I'm glad that you guys are able to make it. Just quickly, also you can get the raffle ticket by turning in your survey. I'm not sure if Ben mentioned that, but at the end, we like to find out what you think of the conference, and make sure you fill it out and you get an extra raffle ticket. And I just want to quickly thank Ben because he's also put a lot of heart and soul into this conference and getting it started. And also, we have this year Lorelei Navaja from Chief of Philadelphia Fight. She's the Chief Strategy Officer, and she's our conference chair and instrumental in getting a lot of the groundwork happen and orchestrated this conference beautifully. So thank you, and Lorelei, it's your turn.
All right, gang, real fast, because we're running behind. First of all, thank you so much for being here, and I also wanted to give another shout out to Bob, because Bob and Comcast are one of the main reasons that we're able to offer this conference as a free professional development opportunity to all of you. And it's a beautiful space, and the food is great, so thank you, Bob, for making all that happen. One of the other things that I wanted to do is also recognize the various people that served on this committee to make this conference happen. We've been working on this for the past 6 months. So people wearing the TLC t-shirt, as well as folks that are representing the organizations, the logos in your program, make sure you extend your thanks to them, because we were all here at 7 o'clock this morning to make you all happy. So, and you know, it's our favorite time of the year. So we're happy to bring this service to you. The other thing that I also wanted to briefly mention and recognize are my colleagues from Philadelphia Fight Community Health Center, so if you could just raise your hand really quickly. So as Ben shared, Philadelphia Fight is one of the conference sponsors for this year. We're a founding member of the Technology Learning Collaborative under the leadership of the Education Director, Juliet Yates. For many, many years, we've brought digital literacy opportunities to Philadelphians across the city. This was all rooted in our beginnings as an HIV and AIDS service organization when, at the height of the AIDS epidemic, there was a lack of quality health information. So what we needed to do was train our patients and community members on doing things like using the internet for the first time and setting up an email account just so that they could get the life-saving information that they needed. Since then, Philadelphia Fight has evolved into a federally qualified health center, which means we are serving all Philadelphians now, regardless of whether or not they're HIV positive. We have multiple clinics in Center City, and we treat people regardless of whether or not they have insurance or their ability to pay. So if you or somebody you know or a friend of yours needs to see a doctor, needs access to health care, needs access to a dentist, we will see them. So look for anybody that works at Fight, and we could give you more information. So with that said, it is my honor to introduce somebody that I look up to who's a total rock star. The first time I met her was at a Key Spot unveiling at People's Emergency Center several years ago, and I told her that she was somebody that I looked up to very, very deeply. Siobhan Reardon, who is the president and director of the Free Library of Philadelphia, and also the first woman to serve in this capacity, which I think is really fantastic. The Free Library has been instrumental in leading the way towards Philadelphians having access to digital literacy educational opportunities, and Siobhan is just generous enough with her time this morning to share some of her thoughts on that.
Well, good morning, everyone. Oh, good. You know, I always, when I ever get up to a mic and I don't hear a good response, you know, I come out of Brooklyn, and if ever you've been to the churches in Brooklyn and you get up and you say hello, the boom that comes back, and I'm just, you know, I insist upon it when I get up to a mic. Anyway, so welcome. It's an honor to have you all here. Actually, it's a privilege to have you all here. You know, we're all in the same fight together around ensuring that our citizens are digitally literate. Let's talk about the basic nominal literacy skills that we're all in it together. But the digital literacy and the complications and developments around that to ensure that this city is a learning city, and that its constituents are actually people, when you think about the work that we do and the equality around what we do and the significance around ensuring that our citizens have the access to the information they need, and especially now when we're in a critical election for the next president of the United States. You know, I was speaking with Tan a minute ago, and I was saying, you know, we have an opportunity in the next 3 weeks, as Ben was also saying, you know, the two candidates, the two major candidates for president, and as well as Gary Johnson and the Green Party candidate, Jean Stein, thank you, are making their way into Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania has now become one of the key states that's gonna help elect the next president of the United States. And it's a giant opportunity for us to get in front of these candidates to ensure that our agenda around literacy, around information, around an informed citizenry are in front of these people, so that when they become president, one of them will become president of the United States, and to ensure their responsibility back to us who helped elect them, that person, president of the United States. So all of our work, though, and the work of the Free Library in particular, has several caveats to the kind of information and the access to the information. We want to make sure that the information is reliable. So that is key, and that's what, you know, defines our profession as librarians. To make sure that the information that you're getting around civic literacy, around your civic engagement, is as responsible and as correct as absolutely possible. We want to make sure that that our sites are available and accessible. It's not always that you can. It's one thing to be able to have a PC or a public access computer in your organization, but it's the ability for that individual to get there. And so that is why we sort of embarked on our 21st Century Library Initiative, where we'll go library by library and making these facilities completely accessible to the individual. There is a physical accessibility and emotional accessibility. Depending upon whatever it is makes you a special individual, we're going to make sure that you have the access to the resources you need in our libraries. And because of TLC, we came together, if you remember all of this, under the broadband initiative, and it makes us strong because now, 8 years later, we're still working together in a way that not many organizations have been able to sustain this collaboration. And so I want to thank you all for the connectedness that you bring to the work that we do. We're all in it together. And however you need the Free Library of Philadelphia, we're here to be ultimately supportive of everything that needs to happen. And Fight Man, it is one of the greatest organizations in the city, I have to say. Thanks. And thank you, everybody. I wanted to be quick because I know you're running behind. And so if anybody has a question for me before I leave, I'm perfectly happy to stick around and answer it. Okay? Cool. Great. Thanks.
Now I'd like to invite Tim Wisniewski up to talk about some of the current city efforts and how he's been working with the city to increase digital engagement.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning. Great. So as Ben said, my name is Tim Wisniewski. It's great to be back here. I spoke here 2 years ago. It's great to see so many familiar faces and so many new faces as well. So I'm the Chief Data Officer at the City of Philadelphia, and I oversee the Office of Open Data and Digital Transformation, which probably explains why Ben couldn't remember all the words of the name of the office. Say that one 3 times fast. So we are a new office. We were created in May by the Chief Administrative Officer, Rebecca Reinhart. There's 11 of us, and we help departments increase the transparency and accessibility of government through technology and user-centered design. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what that means and how that relates to this conference. So most of the work that we do can be divided into 2 broad categories. The first one is open data. Basically, the premise of open data is that we help departments publish government data, things like the city budget, city contracts, bus schedules, school performance, campaign finance information, property assessments, and building code violations. There's over 230 data sets published from the city on opendataphilly.org. When we started this, we were basically putting spreadsheets on the internet, and that's really helpful. That increases transparency. But the thing that's missing there is, what is the return on investment? How does that affect people? How does that help people in our communities? And by employing empathy and trying to understand use cases of how neighbors and residents can benefit from the data, what we've been trying to push people towards is building apps that use the data to meet community needs. So I'll just give you a few examples, some of the ones that government built and some of the ones that community members have built. So because the police department published crime incident data and updates it daily, residents can see if there's been an uptick in vehicle break-ins on their neighborhood on phillypolice.com. Because the Department of Licenses and Inspections published building code violation data, civic associations can look up landlords and see if they have violations before supporting their zoning variance. And L&I also publishes upcoming zoning appeal hearings, the schedule of them, so neighbors can find out about new developments in their community and show up at the zoning hearing. Somebody's opening a new store or a new restaurant. The Office of Property Assessment published property assessment history and records on all the properties in the city, so homeowners can compare their property assessment to their neighbors and homes across the city of Philadelphia. The Office of Finance and Procurement have published every city contract, and so because of that, voters in the upcoming election can trust that all city contracts are listed online for anyone to see. And finally, the Office of City Commissioners have published election result data. So candidates can actually analyze which parts of the city have the lowest voter turnout, perhaps for their opponent, and actually have a leg up in a race that instead of just competing with the usual suspects. So these are some examples of the results and impact of putting data on the internet and how they can connect to people in communities and actually make a difference and make it easier to engage with government. The other type of work that we do, the digital transformation piece, right now it's primarily focused on the web. It's going to expand over the next year or so, but right now we're focusing on the city's website. So look, we know the city's website is difficult to use. But it is more than just the look and feel. If we just gave this thing a facelift and made it work on your phone or made it look modern or something, that wouldn't necessarily solve all the problems. There's problems around the organization of content and the way that the content is written. It is confusing to get around. We have anonymous analytics on our site so that we can optimize the paths people take. This is an anonymous recording of somebody trying to pay their water bill. And you can see they go through like 4 or 5 different pages of all these similar links. So if we made this thing look modern, that would still be there, is the issue. And 4.7 million people come to the city's website every year. That's a lot of people. It is the city's digital front door. So what if we could design it from a typical user's perspective? I'm just going to keep this running. What if we could design it from the perspective of a business owner trying to find information on the net profits tax, or a homeowner looking for information about their trash and recycling pickup, or a senior citizen looking for information about payment assistance programs? Now, the problem is that there's tens of thousands of pages of content like this. And if we wait until it's all been rewritten and reorganized around the needs of those users, frankly, it'll be obsolete by the time we get there. So we built something that we could put out early to start getting feedback from residents, homeowners, business owners, and senior citizens. And last week, we launched beta.philly.gov. So this is a screenshot of it. It is running in parallel to the current website so that we can get feedback as we're building it out. I don't have time to necessarily run through every detail, but there's a new neighborhood resources section. There's a way to report issues to Philly 301 and track them on every single page. And most importantly, we've organized the content that is in there around these high-level service categories that we hope make more sense to people than a government org chart does. So you don't need to know what department owns the content that you're trying to find. And you can dive in, and this is an example of content that has been rewritten and reorganized from the Department of Revenue. Major information right at the top, and you can scroll down, easy to read, and written for people of many different reading levels. Now, this is a work in progress. Not all of the tens of thousands of pages I mentioned look like this. For now, we've been trying to find the most popular pages, and we're creating these temporary pages to at least make them easier to find. So the Parks and Recreation Department has an after-school activities finder. You can at least find it through this website, even though if you click that link, you'll be going back to the current website for the Department of Parks and Recreation. We're putting it up, even though it's unfinished, because we want your feedback. And you can actually sign up to be a beta tester or click on this little guy on any page on there and give us your feedback. So there are, as I said, 11 of us working on this stuff, including Christine, our data services manager over there, plus our boss, Rebecca Reinhardt, and our partners at the Office of Innovation and Technology. Like many public servants, we work in government because we care about our communities and making a difference, just like our colleagues in other departments like Parks and Rec, Water, Streets, Police Department, Revenue. Technology helps us narrow the gap between government and its complicated processes and our residents. By publishing raw data and building engaging websites that work on your phone, we're leveraging technology almost to make shortcuts to doing that. But technology on its own just looks really neat. The only way to truly improve civic engagement with government is through empathy. So we'll be conducting usability testing sessions with residents at our key spot locations around the city over the next couple months to find out, like, does this work for you? Does this actually meet your needs? And then we can incorporate those improvements. And in fact, if you go to beta.philly.gov at the bottom, there's a link to sign up to become a beta tester. We would love for you guys to sign up and help us with that. Frankly, there's so much more that we can do to make our work more effective if we can better understand the needs of the public that we serve, both for open data and for our digital front door. Thanks for the opportunity to share our work with you, and I hope the rest of the conference provides you with inspiring ideas to help Philadelphia. These are the links that I mentioned, but you can also just get, if you're interested in this, the link at the bottom will take you to this presentation if you would like to see any of those online. All right, thank you very much.
That was pretty awesome. Just to know that you can go online and you can search for all this stuff and get to it instantly. I don't know where Philly stands in the sort of pantheon of all the cities that are working on it, but it's clear that with people like that working towards it, we're moving in the right direction. Next, I'd like to introduce Bob Smith, who has been this fantastic supporter of TLC since we started. He's Regional Vice President of Community Investment for Comcast, and we're happy he's chosen to invest a little in us.
Thank you, Ben. Let me also thank Ben, Tan, Lorelei for their work in pulling this conference together and for leading Technology Learning Collaborative. Also, thank you to the Free Library for making this wonderful space available. We started Internet Essentials 5 years ago in an unprecedented effort to connect people to that wonderful resource called the Internet. And like some of the speakers before me, we are delighted that we are not going it alone. No one created the digital divide. It wasn't created by any government or any company. It just evolved, and no one entity is going to solve it. And we're fighting this battle all across the country by offering free digital literacy training and low-cost internet. But nowhere in the country are there as many nonprofits, governmental agencies, and other partners marshaled together to work on this in one place. So we are fortunate and very grateful that we have all of the nonprofits in this room, many of whom we work with individually, and this great collaborative to partner with in bridging the digital divide. So thank you, and please keep up the good work.
I do want to make sure to thank Brian Isdell specifically, who works at the library, for helping arrange and set up this space and just helping make sure it happens, although I think legally it's got to be under somebody else's name, but he was totally key in making this happen, so thanks to him. I just think here we have this incredible alliance of academia. Speaking on the panel today, we're going to have people from academia, people from private business, people from nonprofits, people from government, and it's just incredible that we have everybody pushing together in the same direction. I think that's how we're going to make real movement. I'd like to introduce Eliza Pollack, who will be moderating the panel, and I think we're in for a really exciting morning and full day.
Good morning. We're all really excited to be here yet again in such a beautiful space. Again, since we are pressed for time, I'm going to skip over the niceties of a panel. We're not going to read resumes, and I'm not going to tell bios of the lovely people who have volunteered to kind of speak to us this morning. I'm going to let them do that themselves. I do just kind of quickly want to say it's really exciting that there are so many women involved in this year's conference. It's obviously an all-female panel. And I think kind of one of the really exciting things that's happening in tech is that people are really starting to see themselves in this space. And it's no longer a white male-dominated world. People from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds and cultures and genders and socioeconomic classes are really able to find a place for themselves in this tech world. And what it means to be in the tech world, even in and of itself, is changing. So I think that's one of the great things that TLC does, is kind of highlights the diversity of this community. And it's just something that I really noticed as I was kind of putting together this panel, and kind of we in TLC had been even typing up the program and that sort of thing. It's a really cool, diverse mix this year. So that's just kind of my general opening comment. That aside, I'm going to let Mega and Gretchen and Kelly and Jessa kind of just introduce themselves. The quick overview of this panel is each of these four ladies is going to have a few minutes to kind of give an opening presentation about who they are, how they see themselves fitting into this civic engagement and technology space. Then we're going to do a few kind of moderated questions, and then hopefully we're going to have a few moments to open it up to Q&A from the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Mega to kick it off, and she's going to tell us about Food Connect. I actually don't know how this works.
You're not going to break out.
Great.
No, I forget how to work PowerPoint.
Yeah, you need to click on the presentation.
You do you. Thanks.
All right. Lower the mic a little bit. Hi, my name is Mega Kulshrestha, and I'm the founder of Food Connect. I'll start off by telling you a little bit about Food Connect and how it got started and the work that was involved using technology and engaging the community. And then I'll tell you a little bit about what my biggest takeaways from that were. So I started out with Food Connect. I've been in finance for 5.5 years, a lot of data, a lot of analytics, number crunching research. And I would take the subway home, and then I would take the subway, after work I'd take the subway home, and I would see a lot of the same people hungry on the subway, and I would see a lot of the restaurants throwing away food, perfectly fresh food every evening. So I kind of decided to just approach some of the managers and say, hey, what do you guys do with this food? Do you guys ever donate it after it's done, or are you just throwing it out every night? And a lot of times they would just say, oh, we just throw it away. You know, it's the safest thing to do. We don't really have time to do anything else. So that was kind of the background of how this all started. And I think a lot of it, I noticed this pattern. Once I saw it a few times, I kind of noticed it everywhere, where a lot of the restaurants were throwing away their meals or catering events. Some of the even larger events, you would just see all of this food going to waste. So, you know, I didn't wake up thinking I'm a hunger advocate. I didn't look at this as my calling. I just took the subway and I just saw people hungry, and I saw fresh food going to waste, and I figured I'm not an expert in this, but I want to start doing something about it. So this is just one of those statistics that kind of, you read it and you kind of think to yourself, how is this happening? So from there, I started building out the solution, where we take surplus food. I approached a few restaurants, and a few of them were willing to donate their surplus food. And I started running the deliveries after work and on my weekends to the shelters. I started talking to shelters, understanding their pain points and their needs, and I started mapping out the solution that I thought would be helpful for both from a restaurant perspective and the shelter perspective, and kind of mapping that out. None of the technology for this was built. I really wanted to make sure, because obviously if I had unlimited resources, I could just hire a team and build out the technology, but that's not how it works. For me, I did everything by paper, by phone, handwriting it down, some messy spreadsheets, and it was a little bothersome for me because in my full-time job, I'm dealing with analytics and number crunching, and it's such a clean process, and you make sure each of your spreadsheets are clean. Everything is great, and then, you know, I started this process, and it was very imperfect, and I kind of had to be okay with those imperfections if I didn't want to be paralyzed from action, if that makes any sense. So I just trudged along. And over time, I kind of built out a solution that made sense both from the donor standpoint and both from the shelter standpoint. So on the surface level, it was very straightforward, donating surplus food to shelters. And on the back end, I kind of started writing out all of the pain points for each and how do we connect those. So we became a formal organization in 2014, and a lot of the solutions really started out on paper, with me physically running the deliveries and seeing what all of it looked like. And then from there, we launched our app over the summer. This past summer, we finally launched our app, which the app was phone-based, so you have the donors who can download the app and donate that extra food, and then on the back end, you have a platform, a logistics platform, that it was connected to help with efficiently managing all of the surplus food, because once you start getting into the details, it becomes very complicated. So when the DNC was in town, we partnered with a lot of the organizations in Philadelphia. We were with Philabundance, the Share Food Program, the Mayor's Office of Community Engagement, and the Hunger Coalition. And I kind of saw all of these different hunger relief organizations, and I came up with a solution on how to onboard them onto the current platform. So you don't have fragmented efforts throughout the city. You have one location where donors can input their surplus food, and then on the back end, you have a lot of different mass efforts going on across organizations. And we have volunteers, we have shelters, we have government organizations. So it was really nice in that we were able to onboard a lot of different people in one seamless way. So in 8 days, we were able to donate over 11,000 pounds of food, and the beauty of it was that we were able to do it through technology, and we were able to leverage the existing resources in the city. I didn't go out and buy my own Food Connect truck. I didn't go out and hire all of the drivers. There were existing hunger relief efforts that were already present in the city. We just needed a platform to consolidate those efforts efficiently. So that's kind of, those are a few of the stats. And I think the first two are pretty important, where the first 30 months we donated 6,000 meals. And I think that's a testament to how arduous the process can be of writing everything down and making sure that you have the right information, and then only building out what's necessary. And then post-app launch, we had 50,000, and it's growing as we continue. We haven't even been able to reach out to everybody yet, but whoever's been reaching out to us, we try to service them. But I think those two numbers are a testament to how when you leverage technology, there's a certain level of bells and whistles that can be distractions, and then the core functions that you want to make sure that you execute on. So these are just a few pictures of the deliveries. There's a lot of funny delivery stories, which you can ask me about later. And I think in terms of my biggest takeaways, I kind of wanted to emphasize a few that you may not hear as often. The first, I would say, is defiance. When you're dealing with technology and civic engagement and a lot of these big issues, there's a certain level of defiance that you need in yourself to know that you can do something about it. Not accepting what's already there, but saying to yourself, hey, I know all these other hunger relief organizations exist. I know that all of these efforts are already there, but there's something that I can do about it. And even if it's very little, and even if it doesn't fully make sense, there's a certain level of defiance that you have to have within yourself to take on the issue, because hunger is kind of a big issue. So there's so many different layers, and if you think about all of them, it leads to inaction, at least for me. If I were to think when I first started out all of the different facets of hunger and all the different layers, I wouldn't have been able to do that. So what I did was I focused on the deliveries, and that allowed me to really hone in on a specific problem. And I think the next big takeaway for me was I needed to accept my ignorance in the topic and embrace it. And it kind of goes along with defiance in saying, hey, I'm not an expert in this field. I just see a gap. I see a gap in the surplus food, and I see a gap in hunger, and how do I bridge that? And there's a certain level of being okay with not knowing and still taking those immediate action steps that are needed to get there. So I think that was the biggest learning thing for me, which was being okay with not knowing about it. And the last most important thing was there needs to be a certain level of looking at rules as guidelines with Food Connect, you're in uncharted territories, and especially when you're dealing with technology and civic engagement, sometimes when you identify a gap, there's not always a set of guidelines that are there for you, because if there were, that gap wouldn't exist. So to a certain level, I think when I started Food Connect, there were a lot of gaps that I had to research on my own, and I had to find out those answers and reach out to people and kind of piece those things together. So there's a certain element of when you're dealing with uncharted territory when it comes to technology, when it comes to civic engagement, that rules as guidelines and filling in those blanks and seeking help when you don't always know. I think those are 3 of the most important things that I took away while starting Food Connect. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Now we're going to ask Gretchen to come on up. Oops, where is it? Clara, can you come up here? Oh, it's in the browser. There we go. Oh, no. It's not a true tech conference if people don't actually know how to use the technology. Should we hit present? Yep, we should really hit present. Okay, great. Good morning, everyone. All right, that's helping me not be so nervous. And I'm really pleased to be here this morning to present at this conference in this beautiful space in this incredibly important institution. Again, my name's Gretchen Clausing. I'm the executive director of PhillyCAM. We're the city's nonprofit. We're the nonprofit that's designated by the city of Philadelphia to operate its public access television station. And I wanted to start by just putting up our mission, just so that we're all like in the same place. And then basically PhillyCAM is a community media center that's dedicated to bringing together the people of Philadelphia to make and share media that promotes creative expression, democratic values, and civic engagement, or civic participation. And I wanted to start there because I think it's so much in line with our conversations this morning because of the importance that we place on giving Philadelphians access to learning how to use the tools to be engaged citizens through their digital media making. And when I was thinking about this, I realized I've been doing this for 20 years. And I didn't realize that until I was sort of like preparing for this panel this morning, because if I go back in time and I think about where I was about 20 years ago, I was working as an advocate for independent film and video makers, and realizing that we didn't have a public access television station, and seeing that that was a huge kind of gap in the ability to be able to do our work effectively. So I joined with a group of grassroots activists and launched on a struggle to finally get the public access television stations activated here in Philadelphia. We joined kind of with people that had been doing that work before us, and then in 2008, we finally had the victory of actually having the nonprofit being established by the city of Philadelphia that became PhillyCAM, and then us going on the air as the city's public access television station in 2009, almost about 7 years ago to the day. You can see our programs on Comcast 66 and 966 and Verizon 29 and 30. It's all most of it's locally produced produced content on 24 hours a day, streaming online, and definitely check it out if you haven't. And if you don't have cable, you can also watch our web channel through our website. And then just this past year, we were part of the many people that were part of a very successful renegotiation of the Comcast franchise that assures greater access to all Philadelphians to programs like Internet Essentials, and for the continued support of public access television. But what I realized in kind of doing all that work is to make that happen, we were using media the whole time. Because to convince our elected officials about why public access was important, to actually galvanize community members, nonprofit organizations, we were trying to convince them to support and believe in something that didn't even exist here in Philadelphia. So we had to
gather examples of media from other public access TV stations. We were making our own PSAs. We were documenting every city council hearing where these things were being discussed, and then using that to educate. And we were doing PSAs. We did another SEPTA campaign with, billboards and posters, good old-time print media. And then we also had to create, at that point, we did a flash video presentation, which like in 2007 was like, ooh. And we were told by our allies at the city that we had to create something that was like sizzle, that was going to really like sell this. And it was ultimately that use of that technology was where we were able to demonstrate how we could get all this content together and how it was an important resource for Philadelphians that made it possible for the administration to be like, no, this is really important. We should have done this a long time ago, and we need to move forward. Looking to another struggle for access in community media, we just yesterday, PhillyCAM launched officially our new low-power FM radio station. And that you can hear without having to be a subscriber. You can just listen in your car or at home or on any FM receiver. You can hear us on 106.5 FM, sort of in a 2-mile radius of our antenna, so it covers a good portion of Center City and North Philly and South Philly. This was kind of made possible as a result of a historic fight that was led by a lot of advocates even here in Philadelphia from the Prometheus Radio Project to lobby the federal government to change its laws at the Federal Communications Commission to create a way for these low-power FM stations to exist. And they had a historic victory in 2011 with the Low Power Community Radio Act that made it possible for us. So in 2013, we had an opportunity to apply for the license. We were granted the license in 2015, and we went on the air yesterday. And they also were very astute at using media in their work and how they were able to make this major policy change at a national level. But they also used things as simple as hula hoops and other media that was I think important to consider. We can always talk about digital technology, but I think that when that goes hand in hand with just the showing up and having the good signs and all of that, I think that's really where the sweet spot is. Just a little bit about PhillyCAM. We are a community media center. We really equate ourselves with an institution like the Free Library, where we are there to provide access to tools, cameras, microphones, lights, to training, to spaces where you can get together, our studio spaces, our media lab, and we provide a whole series of training courses for our members in planning your productions, basic field production, to be able to learn to use cameras like the one that Laura's operating our live stream with in the back of the room. We have 2 television studios that you can learn how to operate those studio cameras in the control room. We have editing, audio production, and now you can also learn how to be a radio programmer DJ now that we've launched that. So, and we have a 5-day-a-week after-school program for young people. So there's a drop-in program and also specific workshops that they can sign up for. And it really is about, giving you all the opportunity to become makers, become storytellers through digital media. I want to talk a little bit about the benefits that we have for organizations, since there are people here representing other nonprofits. If you become a member at PhillyCAM, for an individual, it's $25 a year to access our services. For organizations, it's the base level is $30, but then it goes up based on your budget. But some of the other things, in addition to be able to take workshops and put content on the channel, you can also create electronic bulletin board listings for our channel. You can have a consultation about how you'd like to use your membership at PhillyCAM, and you can talk to Antoine Haywood, who's our Director of Membership and Outreach here, and he can help you figure out how best to use the channel. We can support you in producing a 2-minute PSA or a 30-minute studio shoot to raise awareness about a particular issue that you're working on. Or you can hire us. You can hire PhillyCAM and our members to produce content, do live streaming, or produce short videos that you can use online. Or you can even host a community forum in our studio. Some of the programming that's on PhillyCAM, it really is based on what you as the member want to bring to the channel. It really is about providing a space for your voice. We have talk shows, public affairs programming, news, magazine and variety shows, art and culture. We have multilingual programming. Now with the radio station, we actually have a couple sports shows going on the air. A lot of youth programming, a big emphasis on that. We also showcase work by local filmmakers, and then we do special programming like, you know, covering this event here today. I think one of the things that I hope we can, you know, talk a little bit about, you know, today is radio, television, a lot of people sort of see these as being kind of what you would call legacy media. Like people are like, oh, nobody watches television anymore. Nobody listens to the radio anymore. But I don't believe that. I see these as incredibly still important and vibrant platforms. What we hope people can see PhillyCAM as a resource to come to us to gain the skills in digital media production, to use our legacy platforms of radio and television to distribute your information, but then to also work with us to figure out, well, then how can I then take my maybe 30-minute video and edit something short that I can put on social media, or how to take my radio show and have a podcast that people can listen to on their phones, and also just how to use your phone. You know, how can you make media with your phone? And these are the kinds of things that we're trying to develop at PhillyCAM. So that was a lot of information that I just threw at you, but hopefully you'll have a chance to talk about it more. And again, if you've never been to PhillyCAM, please come down and visit us. We're at 7th and Ranstead, which is on 7th Street between Chestnut and Market. And I'm just thrilled to be here this morning. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Gretchen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all. I'm Kelly Klein. Can be found on the internet at Kelly Jo on Twitter. I was a little bit surprised. I was asked to be on this because I don't usually consider what I do as civic tech. That was possibly me trying to pay my water bill online that Tim used earlier. And I think the Alpha team is doing like amazing work, and I'm incredibly excited to like watch that continue to grow. So I was asked to do this panel just as I was wrapping up being the digital director for the 2016 Democratic National Convention. Every time I say that out loud, I still can't believe I got to do it. It was awesome and exceeded my expectations on every front. And I moved to Philly 3 years ago to work on electoral campaign, which is my entire resume. And I was so excited to share with my friends how amazing this city is. So thank you all for being great hosts. Because like they live in DC and pay way too much in rent. So few of the people I've worked for, there's a lot, but elections, you know, happen all the time, and then I always am on the market for a new job. So there's some great current, former, and future. Russ Feingold was one of the first guys I worked for. Not currently a senator, but will be again very shortly. How I got involved in digital in particular, in 2011, our governor of Wisconsin, which is where I was living, passed a budget in the middle of the night, prayed no one noticed. A lot of people noticed, and they wanted him, they came out to let him know that we weren't really on the same page with that. That's when I actually joined Twitter. There was no way to know what was happening on the east side of the Capitol in Madison. If you were on the west side, so when like he ordered, you know, the windows of the Capitol to be screwed shut by the National Guard, that broke on Twitter. And that's when I was like, huh, all right, there could be something here with digital. In my opinion, my experience with civic tech is straight up my efforts in helping elected officials in some of the campaigns I work for get out the vote. And through the election, I'm currently helping out a political action committee here in Pennsylvania. So we're excited about some of the stuff we're doing. I would say the biggest, best thing that has happened is Google working really hard to make it really easy for people to find their polling place. And on top of that, they make it really easy for organizations to build on top of their tools using consistent data. That's really exciting. Campaigns can use this technology coupled with things we know about voters and who's planning on coming to the polls, and, you know, give them extra encouragement. Voter education is also really important, making sure people know deadlines. Obviously, with social media, it's like a lot easier to communicate with the mass public. Making sure people know what ballots look like. I worked for Allison Schwartz, and I had to like create 1,000 graphics because ballots are different in every county, and it can be complicated and it can be scary for the first time for people coming out to vote. And just like, you know, encouraging them, being fun, like voting is fast, like you can do it. My favorite thing about the internet is you can make it really exciting. Also, I appreciate the real-time problem solving. Digital is no longer a backseat in campaigns, which is awesome. We're in the rooms with lawyers, so when people have problems casting, you know, their vote on election day, we're sitting in the room with lawyers to make sure we can respond and like help them out, and I've very much appreciated that. And then I just wanted one quick slide about my favorite part about technology in the electoral sphere is I moved here to work for Allison Schwartz, who is obviously not our governor, but I loved working for her. And so we tweeted one time about stopping in Pittsburgh and eating the big sandwiches with the French fries, as you do if you're an elected official. And somebody naturally responded, because it's the internet, pics or it didn't happen. And I just love that, like, all right, she ate it. It was real. We're not lying. And that was like one of my favorite sort of like moments of the campaign is when people, you know, engage with the elected officials. And there's definitely a level of access now that there wasn't before. And mine's really, really short. But thank you, guys.
And there will be more to hear about Kelly's work as we get into questions. And lastly, let's bring up Jessa. How did I just do that?
Thanks.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. My name's Jessa. I'm an assistant professor at the University of Pennsylvania. So I sort of come here under like two guises. One would be sort of more research-based. So my research is mostly about how marginalized people use digital technology. I've studied many different kinds of groups of people. So everything from countercultural groups, like people who are into extreme body modification, people who are into punk rock, drag queens, to things that we would consider more structural forms of marginalization. So I've studied homeless women in San Francisco and their health information practices. I've studied activist groups at Occupy Wall Street, activist groups in Haiti who are librarians, activist groups in Palestine. So different kinds of marginalization and how they use technology. I also have a background as an activist. So this is me with a post, and this is me empowering a bunch of cell phones with a bike. This isn't after Sandy. I was living in New York, so Occupy Sandy sort of came out and was doing all this stuff. So that's sort of my favorite picture. And sometimes I use this in a class I teach called Gender and Technology, and I do this thing about like what cyborgs are, you know. And so I'm sort of like the whole time I was powering those cell phones, people would be like, "So is the bike powering the phones?" And I'd be like, "No, jerks, my legs are powering the phones." Like that's what's happening. And then this is a bookmobile in Haiti. I've been working with different librarian groups. I'm part of a long-time member of an organization called Radical Reference, which is a group of activist librarians. It's very fun for me to be in this space because I used to work as a librarian. So anytime I'm in a library, I'm like, yes, natural environment. So those are sort of the two hats that I wear. So I do activist work around digital inclusion, information literacy, how people can use technology, and then I do research on countercultural groups. One other thing I'll just say to this group right now is that I also run a library in a county jail here in Philadelphia. So if you have questions about that or have books that you would like to donate to me, let me know. That would be great. Okay, so in my research, the kinds of things I think about in terms of how we can use technology to reach countercultural groups or groups who are in some way marginalized, I think about three basic things, and I call them legibility, flexibility, and authenticity. What does that mean? Legibility, I'm talking about the ways that you as a user of a platform can speak back to the people who have made that platform. So we just saw a great example of that in terms of you can be a beta tester and say, this platform is not working for me. But a lot of times platforms don't have that, right? Like if you feel like Facebook is not working for you, if you feel like its privacy standards are not working for you, there aren't a whole lot of structures for you to say, hey, Facebook, this platform is not working for me. So in that sense, I consider the platform somewhat illegible. So I think when we're talking about building platforms with an activist agenda or for inclusive purposes, we need to think, how can we make it legible? How can we allow users to speak back to us? I also think in terms of flexibility, and that is how much does a platform allow its users to sort of like have some wiggle room? So this is sort of similar, but I think about different activist groups who sort of like cobbled together all these different media sources in order to fit their needs. So for example, when I was at Occupy Wall Street, like, yes, we really needed Twitter, but we also, the most important technology I had during Occupy was my bike. Like, my bike allowed me to run around parts of the city when parts of it were being shut down, and then to connect with other activists. So you need technologies like your smartphone, you need technologies like Twitter, but you might also need technologies like your bicycle or handwritten messages, or all sorts of different kinds of technology. So I take a very broad view of what technology means. So I think the same sort of flexibility is important when we're thinking about social justice applications for digital inclusion. And then the third thing that I think about is called what I call authenticity. And that means, can users see their own values reflected in the technologies that they are using? So again, Facebook is a good example of this. So I've been doing ethnography with drag queens for several years about how they use social media. You would sort of think like, that just sounds like you having fun with drag queens. And that's true. But there's actually really important questions that we can learn, right? So if you remember a couple years ago, Facebook, there was this whole drama around Facebook shutting down drag queens' profiles because they weren't using their quote-unquote real names. They weren't using the names on their driver's licenses. And as a drag queen activist friend of mine said, they violated the 11th commandment, thou shalt not piss off a drag queen. And Facebook was actually, after several months of protesting, tens of thousands of online signatures, they were forced not only to apologize, which Facebook does not have a great track record of doing. This is not me being anti-Facebook, I'm just saying, right? But also they changed their policy and they said, hey, you know what, you're right. It isn't just drag queens who don't want to use their driver's license names. There's all sorts of people. You might be a trans person, you might be a survivor of sexual assault, you might be an informant for the police. You might even just be a teacher who doesn't want to friend all of your students all of the time on Facebook, right? Like, we should be able to have some flexibility in our naming practices, and we should be able to see our own values in the platforms that we use every day. So those are some of the things that I think about in terms of digital inclusion for countercultural and other marginalized users. A couple other things I'll say, that this is sort of you'll be asked to unlearn this if you talk to enough like media strategists, but these are things that I've come to feel about studying online technologies. The first is I feel like sometimes we spend too much time going after mainstream platforms like Facebook and Twitter. I think there's a hyper concentration of Facebook and Twitter, and many, many, many other platforms exist, right? People tend to ignore platforms like Craigslist, where there are, if you ever go in the community like portal on Craigslist for Philadelphia, I mean, there is a wealth of information about what is going on in this city. And some of it might be bullshit, but some of it is really like an important layer of access to people who are not using Facebook for any number of reasons. So sometimes I think that we have limited resources as activists. I hear that, but we might take a broader scope, go beyond Facebook and Twitter and see what other sources are out there. I also worry that sometimes we think we have to build something for mobile devices, like mobile first. This is a paradigm from companies like Microsoft, but this is also a message that we hear from a lot of activists. And I know that it's tempting to build an app, and that can be a really powerful tool, but there are people who don't have smartphones. I myself refer to myself as a lobotomized phone user. I have a smartphone, but I don't have a data plan, so I can't use apps most of the time. Like, that is not a good way to reach me as an activist. It's not a good way to reach any of the guys that I work with in my book club at jail, right? Like, it's not a great way to reach a lot of their families. So when we concentrate on smartphones, when we concentrate on apps, we are excluding an incredible number of people that might be the people we most need to reach. So those are a couple things you'll be asked to unlearn, and that's fine, but I love throwing those messages out there. So there is my email, there's my Tumblr. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about the work I do at the jail, or if you just are out there and you have questions about grad school. I mean, I can answer those questions, some of them. So please feel free, seriously, to send people my way if you have questions about that. Thank you.
So I would just ask, we have, I'm going to do my best to kind of get us back on time track, which I think we're going to be able to do. I think I'm making this up for the panelists, but the panelists will do their best to hang around, and feel free to ask them any additional questions. I think if you want to connect with Jessa around things like grad school, that's like a post-panel question. I just want to put that out here. That's like a sidebar. So we're going to try to keep this conversation focused on kind of the civic engagement and tech space. And with that, I want to kind of dive right into some questions for the panelists, and then hopefully we'll have a few moments to open it up to you guys. So just to kind of start with, when I think of civic engagement, and I kind of got involved in the civic engagement space in college a long time ago at this point, civic engagement to me has always had like a very strong slant towards like true political activism, like true political involvement, and especially interfacing with government and elected officials. So my first question to the panelists is something that Kelly especially touched on, but how can elected officials effectively leverage technology to best communicate with the public? And then also kind of the vice versa side of that. What's the best way that the public can leverage technology to interface with government and elected officials? And let's start with Kelly, and we'll just kind of go from there.
I'm usually pretty loud, so can you guys hear me okay? No? Dang. Okay. Hello? Okay. Hi. Great question. I think the biggest mistake that elected officials make online is treating the internet like a one-way conversation. If you're out there tweeting and people are tweeting back at you or asking you questions or asking for help or asking you all sorts of things on the internet, and you're not there to engage them, even if you don't agree with them, acknowledging people on the internet, like, that is the biggest mistake. The internet is not a microphone for you to speak one way. It is an open conversation, and sometimes it takes a lot of convincing of consultants, communications directors, and elected officials in particular, that is not the case. So, yeah.
So, Jessa, I saw you doing a lot of nodding. Do you want to elaborate on your nods?
I'm actually just a nodder. It's like an embodied form of listening. But I have two. I have like two comments that I would say. So one is about yes, and like +1, and also like I see that same mistake like when libraries, for example, they're like, we're gonna make a Facebook page, and it's like, you can make the Facebook page, but then you also have to dedicate someone to be engaging with people. Like, you need that engagement. So it isn't just for elected officials, obviously. It's also for activist groups, for nonprofit organizations, for even just like communities that are trying to get something going. Like, people, you can't stop at the Facebook page. You have to like keep it going. The other thing I would say is, there's people in my department who study political communication, and it drives me nuts when they throw around this statistic that says 2% of internet conversation is about politics. And what they mean is politics with a capital P, presidential election. Like, you might not believe that about your Facebook thread, like you might feel like it's more than 2% that's politics, but like actually, when you look at the broad scope, only 2% of what we're talking about is politics with a capital P. But I do not believe that statistic, because I'm like, anytime I talk about gentrification, I am talking about politics. Anytime I am talking about road quality and infrastructure, I am talking about politics. Anytime I am talking about who does and doesn't get into school, does and doesn't go into jail, those are conversations about politics. So I think it's great to sort of have a broader understanding. I mean, it's an election year. We're 2 weeks, 3 weeks away. Of course, we're going to be talking about politics with a capital P, presidential election. That's fine. But I like having a more broad understanding of what politics means when we're talking about it. I think when we have that broader understanding, then all of these conversations that we're having about other things can become opportunities to talk about other kinds of politics.
Yeah, I was just going to add in thinking about my most recent experience with the latest Comcast franchise renegotiation. We spent a lot of time talking with our members and our allies and recording video testimonials about what PhillyCAM and the resources that we provided meant to them. And we made some great videos. We sat in meetings with council people and shared those videos, which I think were very compelling. And we helped use those to craft our message, to craft our testimonies. And those were very helpful educating the council people. What you need something that's very targeted and short because they are bouncing from issue to issue, meeting to meeting, and you only have a limited amount of time to be with them. But it was those videos and those meetings which then combined with hundreds of people actually showing up in city council to testify on our behalf and on the behalf of our allies at places like Media Mobilizing Project that really makes the difference. And so I just think it's really important that we always kind of, when everyone here is saying technology, and I always say media, that's just the technology that I work in. But I just so everyone understands that I'm talking about the same thing. But I think it's important to always see these. There's the digital space, but there's the incredible importance that in terms to be effective policy changers and engaged citizens and activists, there needs to be that face-to-face, in-person interaction as well.
Maggie, do you want to say anything on that topic? It's okay if you don't want to. Okay. No pressure. Okay, so going back to Jessa's point, what's kind of like your one piece of advice, one kind of go-to takeaway in terms of how do we really empower diverse communities, disenfranchised communities, people who often feel like their voice can't or isn't heard in this space? How do we really help them use technology or media for civic engagement?
I mean, this is maybe intuitive, but the two things that I have found to be most successful is you start with listening and you don't impose technologies on people. So, for example, the bookmobiles that I found that really worked in Haiti, they worked for a couple of reasons. So, and this was right after the 2010 earthquake. The American Library Association, they were like, we're going to bring bookmobiles to Haiti. And they were like, we're going to bring the ones that we have in the United States, these giant semi-truck-like things, and it's like, in the best of times, that could not navigate a Haitian road, right, let alone after a catastrophic earthquake. So instead, Bibliothèques Sans Frontières, or Libraries Without Borders, they came to Haiti and they said, well, how do you get books? How do you get people around already on your roads? And they were like, oh, with tap taps. And they're like, what's a tap tap? And a tap tap is basically a pickup truck that you convert to like, you take out you put a whole bunch of benches on the side and you just cram a whole bunch of people on it. There's no public transportation in Haiti, right? So this tap taps just like run up and down Haitian roads. And they were like, great, let's just take a tap tap and we'll just turn that into a biblio tap tap and we'll just put books instead of people. And it's like, tap taps are already familiar to Haitians, so it doesn't feel like this like colonialist imposition of a semi-truck. They can physically navigate roads in a way that like other vehicles cannot, and it reflects that you respect the local knowledge, you respect local practices, you respect the limitations, which are actually opportunities of infrastructure. And then you listen to people and you say, what do you want on the tap taps? What kinds of books do you want? Turns out they wanted books that were in Haitian Creole. They didn't want books in French, they didn't want books in English, So you have to, sometimes you just have to listen, and you have to not impose technologies. So I think that those aren't digital technologies, although the TapTaps do provide Wi-Fi hotspots, which is awesome. But I think it's it was such a powerful lesson to me about listening and about respecting local knowledge and about trying to incorporate voices and using existing technologies rather than trying to sort of like reinvent the wheel.
Maggie, you want to say something?
Hello? Yeah, I think that was a great point, and a lot of times when I was working with the shelters and building out the app, we knew that on the restaurant and the donor side, a lot of users would be familiar with using an app, but I knew on the shelter side, you may not have that level of engagement, and I think it is really important to listen to the end user. So when I was building out the app, we made sure that on the shelter side, we were still communicating to them via the platforms that they were used to. So whether that was a schedule that we inputted into our system of when they're available, or making the phone calls, or making sure that we were sensitive to their needs, we made sure that we met them where they were to receive the food donation. So I think that is extremely important. Whether you're dealing with a TapTap or a mobile app, I think making sure you're listening to your end users is really important, and that was one of the things that we had to really work hard to make sure with the shelters, making sure that they still felt engaged, even though it was a mobile platform on the front end.
Yeah, I definitely feel like this is kind of our sweet spot here in this panel, because really, you know, what PhillyCAM is about is creating that space where people can come and gain access to training and to tools. And so, in terms of how to kind of empower people to become you know, civically engaged, we have started a community news program called PhillyCAM Voices, and are training people in how to be community reporters and how to do that. And it's not something that is just in kind of in a couple hours that you can train someone to be a community reporter. And so I think it's about, you know, looking at your constituency and what they're interested in doing, meeting them where they are, being sure to not make a lot of assumptions about what they might, you know or don't know. We had to, you know, as media makers, we use Macs a lot. That's the computer that we use. But a lot of people that were coming to PhillyCAM weren't necessarily familiar with Macs. They wanted to use PCs, so we needed to build in sort of into all our workshops and lesson plans and curriculum, that kind of baseline learning. It's about how to demystify the technology and make people feel confident and that they're not going to break things, and then also there's like just the soft skills of, well, how do you not just how do you operate the camera and the microphones, but how do you also just interact with somebody that you're doing an interview with? How are you kind of being prepared and having a plan for your shoot and things like that? So, those are the things that I see are really important. And as our members then feel, they have the skills, they feel confident, and then they're able to present themselves well in situations where they're going and videotaping in public and becoming really powerful communicators.
So something that I heard kind of in most of those answers, and also in some of the things that you guys spoke about in your quick presentations, is that a tech tool or an app or whatever it might be is really only as good as the users and as the community that surrounds it. And second of all, kind of especially in what the comments that you guys just said, there's actually a lot that happens before and around creating a tech-based solution. There's conversations, there's listening, there's acceptance, there's tons of things that need to be considered before we're like, surprise, now we have this great app that's going to solve world hunger. So a quick poll for you guys sitting in the audience. How many of you have seen a problem in Philly that you're like, yep, I want to fix that? There's a few things. Okay, so I want to kind of end these formal questions on a question that is really around process. So all these folks in the room, myself included, there are things in Philly that we would really like to change, we'd really like to work on. What does the process look like? And Mega, I'm going to ask you to start this. So what does it look like to really see a problem and then move yourself through the development process of getting to a tech-based, or honestly, just a general solution?
Yeah, so I touched upon that a little bit during my presentation in terms of some of the characteristics you'll need to build out a process, but really what that looks like is when you see something, I think there's a certain level of ownership that needs to take place when you see something happening on your block or in your neighborhood or in your office. You have to own that as I see myself in that problem. Because when you take ownership of it is when you kind of start seeing the pain points of it. So I think the process starts with this sense of ownership that, hey, I'm part of the problem and I can be part of the solution. From there, a lot of it is legwork. As great as technology is, it doesn't replace research. It doesn't replace going on the ground, physically talking to whatever user or population that you're trying to serve. Technology is only as good as its input, and that if that input is you need to educate yourself on whatever problem it is that you're trying to address. So delve into it, Google it 1,000 times, talk to people who are already in it, and one thing that I really did learn is that enthusiasm does not equal execution. So you can be excited about it, but do the legwork associated with understanding what it means to execute on the solution. If you have an idea, let's take that idea to the streets. Let's carry that idea out in real life on a very fundamental level, and see what it feels like, see what it plays out to be. So from there, you can kind of build out the solution. So I would say those are the starting points. There's a lot more, obviously, and I can go on, but the starting points is when you see something, start doing something about it. Even if you don't know a lot about it, research it, do the legwork, and you'll start kind of figuring out the next steps. Don't feel like you have to have the entire vision on day one or week one or month one. It doesn't work like that.
Are we just going down?
Yeah, we can just go down the line for this one, sure.
I mean, when I think about what we do at PhillyCAM, you know, I think it's about holding a space for people to kind of come together and use technology, use media to have conversations. And I think that, you know, that's where the listening happens. It's also where we can do things in a longer format. We're not necessarily, you know, I think it's okay if we do a television program that addresses an issue in depth for an hour or 2 hours. We are a non-commercial station. We have the ability and the flexibility to do that. We can live stream this panel today and put it on the air tomorrow. And not everyone's going to watch the whole thing, but the fact that we've been able to document it and have it there where people can go back and get, you know, hear your great comments and maybe edit it into other presentations. You know, I think that that's something that is how we can contribute to some of this problem solving. And, you know, I think people do really great thinking when they're in a room together. You know, of course, in preparation for this, I went on to like the internet and Googled civic engagement on Wikipedia, and it said that like people get less engaged the more they watch television, but that studies show that they become very engaged when they're actually making media. So anyway, that's where I'm going to end.
I agree with what's been said. I think the listening is key, and just making sure that you're not bringing your own assumptions. Just because you've voted before doesn't mean anyone else has voted before. As somebody who's lived in a lot of different states, Pennsylvania is not as simple as connecting an arrow with a pencil, you know, and so like getting rid of all your personal assumptions and making sure you're like actually making it comfortable for other folks to engage is important.
I loved what Mega said in her presentation about the need for defiance, but there's also, and she also mentioned, I believe, a need for humility, and like going back and forth between those two things. Like when I was trying to start this jail library, I mean, it was so weird because, I mean, on a lot of, partly it was just enthusiasm carrying it forward where, I mean, please do not tweet this, but it is almost impossible to get through volunteer orientation at PPS, like the Philadelphia prison system. Like, I had to fight so hard in order to be a volunteer, which is just like crazy. But then, so it was like kind of just like buoyant enthusiasm that I was like, I want to do this. So I like sort of made them let me do it. But there were other moments where like I just needed all this humility. So I mean, I'm pretty new at this whole professor gig, if you couldn't tell. And so I like was really unprepared. So one piece of advice, of course, is like part of not reinventing the wheel is coalition building. So I tried really hard to like reach out to different coalition groups that I could imagine in Philly, because there's a lot of activist organizations here. It's one of my favorite parts of Philly. So it was so weird because on the one hand, the jail wanted to let me do what I was doing because I was a professor. I can't even tell you, when I slid my business card across the table to the warden, I saw him physically sit up in a way where he was like not taking me seriously before, and then it was like, oh, you're for real. This like business card you have is like, I was like, I could just be printing that off at Kinko's, but sure. So he like really took me seriously, and it was so weird that on the flip side, after all my years of being an activist as a student, when people don't care what organization you're from, suddenly being a professor at Penn, I was started getting a little bit of side eye from like anarchist groups who I thought would be natural partners for my work. And so on the one hand, there was this. And we've come a long way, and it's fine now. But like, so on the one hand, coalition building was within the organization that I wanted to do something with, where that same passion that these wonderful women have been talking about, that same passion like carried me through, and I was so stubborn, and it was pure enthusiasm. But there was also a lot of humility in recognizing the different layers of privilege and status that I had, and when it worked in ways that were really beneficial to me, and then when it totally hindered me in other ways. So that was the main thing I learned in that process as far as like moving my agenda forward and building this thing that I wanted to build. And now I have almost 1,000 books in this library after starting with like 10, so I'm super pumped.
Woo!
Yeah.
Technology does not replace books, by the way. I also,
Fact.
reading on your iPad is not the same as like reading a book. Okay, so I think we probably have time for definitely one, possibly two questions. So I'm going to let you all duke it out for who gets to ask that one question. No, I'm just kidding. All right. Enthusiasm is going to carry you through, sir. So it's all you. Yes, you can.
My question would be directed to Mega. Food Connect. Lady, I applaud you for what you're doing. I am a banquet server, and in Philadelphia, there's 45 hotels and blue gods and country clubs and cater facilities, restaurants, over 4,000 restaurants and so. How can you better reach out to these 45 hotels to release this food? I've been a banquet server for 35 years, and we are throwing tons and tons of food away. And I want to do the same thing that I brought 10 of my banquet server.
Yeah.
I mean, they tell us to throw away. I'm like, oh my God, I wish I could pack this food up and just go out here and reach these homeless people. That's really on SEPTA, way before SEPTA was PTC. I'm telling my age. But I see the homeless people on the subway trains and trolleys. I'm a volunteer for the Red Cross. Volunteer all over the place. But we need to fix this problem. This food being tossed out, and there clearly can be a way that we can better do this if you can just get a hold of the bull by both horns. And that's the general managers and the corporations such as Marriott, Aramark, Sodexo, and Hilton, Sheraton, Lowe's, and all these different hotels downtown in Philadelphia. And tell them to release, the executive chef needs to take this food, cool it down, and put it in refrigeration and just donate it to you. So
yeah,
and a better way.
And a lot of this revolves around food safety, making sure the food is safe when we are donating it. So if you guys are part of organizations that are in charge of events or know restaurants, anything like that, you can tell them to download the Food Connect app where they can schedule a pickup. The way the pickup works is that when you're a donor, you're signing off a release form saying that you're following the food safety standards that you're already legally held by in order to serve that food. So all of the state and federal food handling laws already apply to you if you're a food server at an event or a restaurant. So when you do schedule that pickup, you're signing off that you've been following those laws and this food has been held to those laws. Now, when we deliver the food to the shelters that we work with also sign a release form saying, hey, we know this food is coming from a place that follows state and federal laws on safe food handling, and we know that during transportation, it was also the state and federal food handling laws were applied. So I think at each step of the way, all parties involved are signing off on the safety of it. And one other thing about the food safety is when you're doing it in real time, the app allows you to do this in real time. So you're really cutting down on how long this food can be out for. So it makes it a little bit easier to donate that food. So if you do have relationships with restaurants or caterers or events, you can reach out to us on our website at foodconnectgroup.com, or you can simply have them download the app. Sometimes I know that restaurants have more questions, and we're happy to set up a training for that. But I agree, there's a lot of food, and we'll get there slowly. Hopefully one day we just have policy that supports these things as well. But until then, we have people like me and you who talk to restaurants and who start having those conversations that, hey, there is a choice you're making when you're throwing it out. There is an alternative. So just starting those conversations, it really starts with all of you guys helping me in this process, because that's how I started it, talking to the restaurants.
So when they go on your website, is it an email they can contact you? Because I'm not familiar with this food app, and I don't want to use it. I just want to just go directly to your email. Can we do it that way?
Yeah, you can. If you guys, if you're not a restaurant or a server or anything like that, you can simply email us at foodconnectphilly@gmail.com. If you have any questions, if you go to our website, you can use the Contact Us form as well. So if you have any questions, you can just use Contact Us, and we'll be happy to walk you through it.
Great. And you guys can now also use Facebook and Twitter to lobby the city and lobby elected officials to make changes around our food donation policies, et cetera, because Kelly just told us that Twitter is great. Okay. So my primary goal was to kind of let these wonderful women talk about all the great work they're doing. My secondary goal was to get us back on time track, which I have done. So I'm going to wrap this up now. Some of our presenters might be hanging around for a little bit if you want to flag them to talk more specifically about what they talked about here today. Otherwise, I'm going to bring up Tan, who's going to explain how the next part of the day is going to go. Thank you so much. This was great. You guys are great. Have a wonderful afternoon.
So how about another round of applause for our panelists? Thank you. So with my low-tech strategy for this conference, I was designing dots out there that maybe 1/10 of you got, which is okay, because we also did a low-tech kind of solution when we DV up rooms and make sure there's ample spaces. So we're good. Now, you need to just know where to go with the 3 workshops. And just so you know, the PowerPoint for the Jefferson Telemedicine and Philadelphia Works, they're on the flash drive that each one of you have gotten in the gift bag. So just in case, for whatever reason that you feel the need to take notes or have a copy of, and I'm sure if you need information with like TurboVote or Commit of 70, they can walk you through places where you can download and get information. With that said, the Civic Technology Product Testing Workshop will be in 406. That's straight out this door, go straight down, make a left. The Jefferson Telemedicine will be 405, the red dot. And the Philadelphia Works will be here in the Skyline for those of you who are interested in the gamification and workshops in terms of the virtual career services system. And that's basically it. Any last minute announcement there, Ben?
Just be sure to go see, during the lunch break, be sure to go down to 108 and look around down there because there's some amazing things going on down there. And I could talk about each of the groups, but just let me recommend that you do it and go to each group and talk to them. And of course, not only will you learn something that you can use back at your organization, but you'll get a raffle ticket.
Yes, yep. And logistic-wise, not sure anybody told you, but there are bathroom here and also a bathroom where the workshops will be, just in case. Yes, you know, logistical thing. So give the workshop presenters a couple of minutes, and also, again, the panelists thank for their time. Yes. Sorry. Lunch is really important to me. I can't believe I forgot that. It's 12:45, and lunch will be in room 406 and 407. The leftover food from and drinks are here, and also by the 406, 407 from the morning.
And Megan will take anything that we
Oh, yes. And we'll talk to Mega if there's any leftovers. So thank you, guys.